Story 1: The Abandoned Shack. I still check the locks 3 times a night. I know it sounds crazy to my roommates, but if you saw what I saw in those woods behind Miller's Creek, you wouldn't sleep right either. It wasn't a ghost or some supernatural monster. It was something worse because it was real, and it was living right in our backyard. It happened last October. My buddy Tyler and I were killing time on a Saturday afternoon. We lived in one of those sprawling suburban towns where development just abruptly stops and dense forest begins. Tyler was always the adventurous type, the kind of guy who jumped off roofs into pools and explored drainage tunnels. He wanted to hike off-trail near the old quarry, way past where the local kids usually partied. We ended up way deeper in the woods than usual. The trees were thick out there, blocking out most of the afternoon sun, making it feel like twilight even though it was only 3 p.m. The air felt cooler, damper. That's when we saw it. It was tucked away in a small depression between 2 ridges, almost invisible until you were right on top of it. It was a shack, but not like a quaint log cabin. This looked rotten and angry. It was patched together with mismatched plywood, scavenged tarp paper, and rusted corrugated metal. It looked abandoned, but also strangely deliberate. "Dude, check it out," Tyler said, already sliding down the leafy embankment toward it. I told him we should just leave it alone. It gave me a bad vibe instantly. The silence around that place felt heavy. No birds, no bugs, just dead quiet. But Tyler just called me paranoid and pushed the front door open. It didn't squeak. It just scraped loudly against the dirt floor. Against my better judgment, I followed him inside. The smell hit me first. It was awful, a mix of deep-seated mildew, stale tobacco, and something else, something sharp like ammonia. It was dark inside, the only light coming from the open doorway and gaps in the walls. It was full of junk. There were piles of moldy clothes in one corner, rusted cans of food opened with a knife, and strange little carvings made of twigs hanging from the ceiling twine. It felt claustrophobic. It felt like we were invading someone's very private, very sick headspace. Tyler was digging through a plastic crate near what looked like a makeshift bed. "Look at this," he whispered. He held up an old digital camcorder. It looked relatively new compared to everything else in the shack. It was clean. Tyler flipped the screen open and hit the power button. Amazingly, it turned on. There was one video file stored on the internal memory. He pressed play. We huddled together to watch the small, grainy screen. The video was dark and shaky. It showed a POV shot of someone walking through the woods at night. You could hear heavy, wet breathing behind the camera. Then the camera zoomed in. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. It was zooming in on a house. It was Tyler's house. I recognized his dad's F-150 in the driveway under the street lamp. The person filming walked around the side of the house, right up to the living room window. You could see Tyler's mom inside, watching TV on the couch, completely unaware. The timestamp on the video was from 2 nights ago. "What the hell is this, Chris?" Tyler's voice trembled. He dropped the camera onto a dusty table. "We have to go," I said, grabbing his arm. "Now." We turned to bolt out the door, but we both froze. A floorboard creaked outside. It wasn't a small sound. It was a heavy, deliberate step right in front of the door. The smell changed instantly. The musty odor was overpowered by a wave of fresh, unwashed sweat. Someone was standing right outside the doorway. We were trapped. There was no back exit. Through a wide gap in the rotting plywood wall near my head, I saw movement. Just a flash of a dirty gray hoodie. Then, a face pressed against the gap, peering in. It was a man. His hair was matted and filthy, his skin covered in grime. But his eyes were wide open, incredibly white against the dirt, unblinking and manic. He wasn't angry. He was smiling. A wide, terrible, silent smile showing rotted teeth. He saw us looking at him. He pressed his finger to his lips in a shush gesture, then whispered one word through the wall. his voice like grinding stones. "Playtime." Tyler screamed. It was a primal sound of pure terror. He shoved me forward and we burst through the doorway, nearly colliding with the man. He grabbed at my jacket, his fingers digging in like claws, but I ripped away. We didn't look back. We ran blindly through the briars and thorns, tearing our clothes, tripping over roots. I think I threw up while running, but I didn't stop. We didn't slow down until we hit the paved road miles away near the 7-Eleven. We called the cops immediately. We told them everything. They sent cruisers out there, guns drawn. They found the shack, but it was empty. The guy was gone. They found the camcorder, though. They took it into evidence. A few days later, a detective came to interview me again. He looked sick. He told me they watched the whole video Tyler and I found. It was bad. But then he told me something else. Something that makes my blood run cold every time I walk past a patch of woods now. They recovered deleted files from the camera's memory card. There was another video on it, taken just 20 minutes before we found the shack. It was footage filmed from high up in a tree. It showed me and Tyler walking down the trail, laughing, heading straight toward where the shack was hidden. We were being herded. He knew we were coming the whole time. Story 2, the no-tip customer. I still flinch whenever my phone buzzes late at night. It used to just mean another delivery job, another $5 in my pocket. But now, that sound just takes me back to that driveway at the edge of town, and the customer who never, ever tipped. I was working for a local pizza joint last summer, taking all the closing shifts because I was desperate to save up for a new car. You meet some weird characters delivering food past 10 p.m., but mostly it's just stoners or tired parents who don't want to cook. Then there was the guy at 4200 Oak Street. The orders always came in right before we stopped taking calls. It was always a lot of food, 2 large pizzas, wings, soda. And every single time the special instructions were the same. Contactless delivery, leave on porch, do not knock. And he never tipped, not on the app, no cash under the mat, nothing. At first, it was just annoying. My manager, Dave, used to joke that the guy was probably some eccentric millionaire hoarding his pennies. The house matched the vibe, too. It was way out at the end of a gravel road where the suburban streetlights just stopped. It was a big, older house, always completely dark, looming against the woods behind it. The first time things felt off was a rainy Tuesday. I pulled up to the house, the gravel crunching loud under my tires in the silence out there. I grabbed the hot bags and ran up to the porch to get out of the rain. When I bent down to set the new boxes on the mat, I froze. The order from 2 nights ago was still there. The cardboard boxes were soggy and collapsing from the rain. They were covered in ants. I could smell the pepperoni rotting inside. Who orders $50 worth of food and just lets it decay on their doorstep? I dropped the fresh food next to the rotting pile and got back to my car fast. I told Dave about it when I got back. He just shrugged it off. As long as his card goes through, not our problem, Mike. I guess he was right, but it didn't sit right with me. 2 nights later, another order for 4200 Oak came through. I almost refused to take it, but I needed the cash. When I pulled up this time, the porch was clear. The old, rotten boxes were gone. I felt a little relief. Maybe he'd just been out of town or something. I walked up, set the food down, and took the mandatory delivered photo for the app. That's when I heard it. It came from inside the house, right behind the front door. It was a low, rhythmic thumping sound. Thump, 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 like someone weakly hitting the floor. I stopped breathing, listening hard. The thumping stopped, and then I heard a faint, muffled sound. It sounded like someone trying to scream through a gag. My heart hammered against my ribs. I backed away slowly, trying not to make noise on the creaky porch wood. I got into my car, locked the doors, and sped out of there. I tried to rationalize it on the drive back. Maybe it was a dog, a weird TV show. but the fear in my gut told me otherwise. I should have called the cops right then, but I didn't. I was stupid. Saturday night, the order came in again. This time I was angry. I was sick of being scared of this cheapskate weirdo. I decided I wasn't going to just leave it. I was going to knock. I wanted to see who lived there. I pulled up. The house was pitch black as usual. I marched up to the door, ignoring the "do not knock" instruction in my head, and pounded on the wood 3 times. "Pizza delivery," I yelled, my voice shaking a little. "Silence." I knocked again, louder. Nothing. I stepped off the porch to the side, where a large living room window looked out onto the yard. The blinds were slightly open. I pressed my face close to the glass, cupping my hands to see inside. The living room was barely illuminated by the moonlight coming through the window. It was empty, except for a single wooden armchair in the center of the room, facing away from me. "Hello," I called out, tapping on the glass. Then the chair slowly swiveled around. It wasn't an eccentric millionaire. It was a man, maybe in his 50s, tied tightly to the chair with thick rope. His clothes were filthy. Duct tape was wrapped around his entire lower face. His eyes were wide, terrified, pleading with me in the moonlight. He started thrashing against the ropes, making that muffled screaming sound I'd heard before. I stumbled back from the window, my brain unable to process what I was seeing. Just then, my phone buzzed violently in my hand. It was a notification from the delivery app, a message from the customer. I looked down at the screen. The message read, "I see you peeking, Mike." I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just turned and ran for my car, dropping the pizza bags in the driveway. I peeled out of there so fast I almost put the car in a ditch. I dialed 911 before I even reached the main road. The cops found the homeowner, the man in the chair, alive but severely dehydrated. He'd been tied up for 10 days. The person ordering the food wasn't him. It was the intruder holding him hostage. The cops said the guy had been living upstairs, using the homeowner's phone and credit card to order food, just watching me drop it off from an upstairs window like some sick game. They never caught the intruder. He slipped out the back into the woods before the police arrived. I quit my job the next day. I still don't have a car, but I don't care. I thought that was the end of it. But yesterday morning, I opened the door to my own apartment to leave for class. Sitting on my doormat was a single, lukewarm slice of pepperoni pizza on a paper plate. Underneath the plate was a crisp $5 bill and a handwritten note that just said, "Here, your tip. Sorry for the wait." Story 3, the basement order. If you have ever worked as a delivery driver, you know the special instructions box is usually for things like gate code 1234 or please do not ring the bell. The baby is sleeping. But after what happened last Tuesday, I do not think I will ever step foot on a customer's property again, let alone inside their house. I am still shaking while I type this out, and I have moved back into my parents' place because I cannot stand being alone in my apartment anymore. I was working a late shift for one of the big delivery apps. I usually stay in the suburbs of Pennsylvania where it is mostly quiet and safe. It was around 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, one of those nights where the fog is so thick you can barely see the taillights of the car in front of you. I was about to log off when a massive order popped up from a local barbecue joint. It was a $70 order, but the tip was the crazy part, $60. I figured it was a mistake or someone was drunk and feeling generous. The address was 114 Blackwood Lane. I knew the area. It was an older neighborhood with big, Victorian-style houses that sat back deep from the road behind rows of overgrown oak trees. I picked up the food, 3 heavy bags that smelled like smoked brisket and vinegar, and drove out there. When I pulled up to the house, every single light was off. The place looked like a giant shadow against the foggy sky. I checked the app for the drop-off instructions, and that is when I felt the first real prickle of unease. The instructions said, "Come to the left side of the house. The basement door will be unlocked. Please bring the food all the way down to the kitchen table in the basement. Do not knock or ring the front bell. The owners are elderly and sleep upstairs. I do not want to wake them." I stared at my phone for a minute. Everything in me was saying to just leave the bags on the porch and bolt. But that $60 tip was already burning a hole in my mind. I told myself it was probably just a college kid living in his parents' basement or a tenant in a basement apartment. I grabbed the bags and walked down the narrow stone path on the left side of the house. The air felt colder back there, away from the streetlights. I found the basement door. It was a heavy, slanted wooden cellar door that led to a set of concrete stairs. It was cracked open just an inch. I pushed it open and the smell hit me. It was not a gross smell, not at first. It was the smell of industrial bleach. It was so strong it made my eyes water. I walked down the stairs into the basement. It was actually a finished basement with wood paneling and a tiled floor, but it was empty of furniture except for a long, rectangular wooden table in the center of the room. I set the bags down on the table. The silence was heavy, the kind of silence that feels like it is pressing against your ears. I pulled out my phone to take the delivery photo, but as the flash went off, I saw something in the corner of the room that was not there before. It was a tripod, and on top of that tripod was a high-end digital camera, its lens pointed directly at the table where I was standing. A small red light was blinking on the side. It was recording. I felt a surge of pure adrenaline. I turned around to leave, but then I heard a sound coming from a small storage door under the stairs. It was a soft, rhythmic scratching, like a dog trying to get out, or someone scraping their fingernails against wood. "Is anyone there?" I asked. My voice sounded thin and pathetic in the big room. The scratching stopped instantly. Then, a voice came from a small Bluetooth speaker hidden somewhere near the ceiling. It was not a natural voice. It sounded like a text-to-speech program, flat and robotic. "The food looks delicious, Jason." My blood turned to ice. I had not told the app my real name. On the app, I use a nickname. How did this person know my name was Jason? I backed away from the table, heading for the stairs. But as I reached the bottom step, the heavy wooden cellar door above me slammed shut. I heard the distinct metallic slide of a deadbolt clicking into place. I was trapped. I ran up the stairs and threw my shoulder against the door, but it was solid oak. It did not even budge. I started screaming for help, pounding on the wood, hoping the elderly owners upstairs would hear me. Then the speaker crackled again. "They cannot hear you, Jason. They are not home. They have been in Florida for 3 weeks. I have been waiting for someone to accept this specific order all night. You were the only one brave enough to come inside." I turned around, looking for any other way out. I saw a small, rectangular window near the ceiling, the kind that usually lets a little light into a basement. It was small, but I was thin. I dragged the heavy wooden table over to the wall, ignoring the bags of barbecue that slid off and hit the floor. As I climbed onto the table, I looked at the camera again. The lens was zooming in on me. I could hear the tiny motor whirring. I grabbed the latch of the window and yanked. It was stuck. I used the heel of my palm to smash the glass, ignoring the way it sliced into my skin. I reached through, cleared the shards, and started pulling myself up. That is when the storage door under the stairs creaked open. I did not look. I did not want to see what was coming out of that dark little room. I just hauled myself through the window, my jacket catching on the frame, the jagged glass tearing at my stomach. I tumbled out onto the wet grass outside and just ran. I did not go back to my car. I ran 3 blocks to a gas station and told the clerk to call 111. When the police arrived at the house, they found the basement door wide open. The table had been moved back to the center of the room. The food was gone. The camera and the tripod were gone. But the most disturbing part was what they found in that storage room under the stairs. It was not a person. It was a collection of printed photos pinned to the walls, hundreds of them. They were all photos of me at the grocery store, photos of me pumping gas, photos of me sitting on my balcony at my apartment. Some of them were dated from months ago. The police told me that the order had been placed using a stolen credit card and a burner phone. They never found the person who was in that house, but I know they are still out there. Last night, I got a notification on my delivery app, even though I had deleted it. It was a message from a customer on a canceled order. It just said, "You forgot to take the trash out this morning, Jason. The brisket was a bit dry."